guys, I wanted to talk to you today about earnest money, where we deposit it, how we deposit it. We like the earnest money to be deposited with the title company. We can hold it here at the brokerage. However, it's just an extra step of accounting and guidelines that we have to follow. So as often as possible, we like to deposit the earnest money at the title company. So when you do that, you have to provide this form, okay? It's part of the REPC because on the REPC, it states that it's gonna be held with the brokerage. And if that's not the case, then we've gotta have this addendum to there. So first thing in section 1 that you guys gotta know about is obviously where is the earnest money going? Who's gonna hold it? Is Utah First Title gonna hold it? Is another title company gonna hold it? You're gonna put in the address, the phone number, and the email of the title agent. Now, they bolded this part right here because it's really important on what's going to happen should something go bad. So with some title companies, they're going to be, if the contract obviously states that the earnest money is to be released to the buyer because you guys backed out in advance, usually the title company can do a pretty good job for you guys if you use, the ones that we recommend. However, there might be a case where there's a title company that says, look, I'm not going to release this earnest money from your buyer, even though you guys clearly backed out from the deadline, before the deadline, unless I get the both buyer and seller signatures on that. So you'll have to go to the agent, you'll have to get signatures, you'll have to hound them for that. And it's not terribly hard, but at the same time, what we don't want to have happen is a dispute, right? And this usually happens when we go past our dates and deadlines. That's when it's clear that something bad has happened. Now, there's both good and bad when you're representing the buyer and the seller, and this is the meat and potatoes of what I want to talk to you guys about. First is, if you're representing the buyer and something goes bad, there's a really good chance your buyer's never gonna see that earnest money, and they probably shouldn't because you didn't protect their dates and deadlines, or they were past it and they messed up. However, in order for the seller to get that earnest money, they're going to have to get a signature from your buyer, which may be hard. So if this is a case where you feel really justified that maybe your buyer kind of got gypped out of things, I've got an example. Our buyer was buying a flip. The flip guy needed to disclose to the lender kind of what he bought it for and some repairs, and he just wouldn't do it. He wouldn't do it, he wouldn't do it, he wouldn't do it. Ended up, the deal died. We were past our dates and deadlines. Isn't my client, but someone here, and they lost their earnest money. So instead of just releasing the whole thing to them, said, look, you're not gonna get this earnest money until we sign it. We're not gonna get it unless you sign it, which we know is not gonna happen. So let's just split it. We'll give you 500, we'll take 500, and sometimes compromising after the fact can be a good win-win for the buyer, especially if you feel like, they got screwed out of something that maybe was the seller's fault. Now, if you're representing the seller, remember that same principle. We don't want things to happen when it goes bad. So if you're representing the seller and the earnest money is deposited at the title company and things go bad, remember that same thing. You're not going to get that earnest money unless you get a signature from the buyer. So depending on the situation, what it is, how it is, it will sit in that title company's escrow account until we get a signature from the buyer. So again, you may have to compromise, but before that, we can see what's happening. So my number one tip is if this is happening, let's get the earnest money released to the seller, right? So a lot of times these deals, they need extensions. They need help. And so what you can do is say, look, we'll give you the extension, but we need the earnest money to be released directly to the seller. You guys can do that and get it released to them after all the dates and deadlines have been passed before the deal goes super bad, which will then put money in your seller's pocket, which will avoid this whole thing if that happens. Hope this helps. Thanks, guys.